This is the Watching the Wireless podcast. My name is Jamie Dyer, and in this edition, my guest is a presenter all the way from Nigeria. She is known by the name Nekky, and she's here today to talk about Nigerian radio and her show in general. So tell us, Nekky, welcome to the show. Tell us about your show.
Thank you very much, Jamie. My name is Nekky, on a talent in Nigeria. Of course, I'm on the morning bell from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on a daily basis, Monday through Saturdays. Now, the morning bell here, how we run it is more like a wake-up show where you get to wake people up in the morning, the good music, of course, their plans for the rest of the day. And, of course, later on in the show, we get to talk about social issues as it affects people in our society. For instance, this morning we talked about a very, very scary monster that is creeping gradually into our society. It's called cryptic pregnancy. But then it's actually a scam where people are told that they are pregnant, but somehow actually not pregnant, and are injected with some substance or another by whack doctors. And in 9 months or 10 months, as the case may be, they get to deliver. But now it's sort of a baby factory that is booming. So we talked about it this morning. We had doctors on the show, people who had had experiences with, patients who have had to go through this scam called cryptic pregnancy. And then we also talked to security agencies, what they're doing, to make sure that things like this are, fished out of the society. And after that, there's a segment on my show called Ginger, where we get to play good music, to serenade you, and of course, make your day really, really fantastic.
It really sounds like it's a full-up show. And you say that is 3 hours, 4 hours?
That's like a 4-hour show from 6 a.m. all through to 10 a.m. So in the morning bell, for instance, when we resume at 6 to 6:30, we have a segment. And of course, 7 to 7:30, 6:30, I beg your pardon, up until 7:30, there's a segment where we get to review, stories making headlines in newspapers in and around town. And afterwards, we get into the serious talk show for the day. And in between, we also do sports too for about 30 minutes. So it's a mix of literally everything that could set your day going well.
Wow. I mean, it really does sound like you're packed. And how wide is the coverage on the station? Do you reach a very wide geographic?
Yes, geographically, if you are familiar with Nigeria, we have 36 states in Nigeria. Now, my station has outlets in almost 5 states. But then in the southeast here, where you have 5 states, our station gets to reach about 3 of those states. And of course, we also spread to the south, and sometimes we also spread to the north. Middle belt. Yes, so we get to Benue State if you're familiar with Nigeria, but I'm sure you're not. But then I'll just leave it at that. So our coverage, we get to reach about 4 states in general.
Wow, so that's quite a wide thing. I mean, I'm not familiar with the kind of geography of Nigeria. Is radio a very popular medium in that country?
Yes, a very popular medium, because aside from giving them things that are social issues that affect them, we also speak in a language that relates to grassroots, and it's called Pidgin English. I don't know if you've heard of Pidgin English before. It's form of English that's really not English.
I'm not familiar with that, no.
So it's actually English anyway. For instance, if I want to say, how are you? In Pidgin English, we say, how you day. So that's like grassroots.
How much kind of percentage would you say your program was speech in regards to speech and music?
Okay, for music, we are the only, let's say 50-50. You know why? Because we have a 4-minute speech ban. We talk for 4 minutes, and then we play music for another 4 minutes, and we come on to talk again for another 4 minutes. So it's music and talk. So it's control talk, and then we have more music on the station. We are literally like, one of the stations that does that there in Nigeria. So it's like 50-50 balance. We don't believe in talking too much because the attention span of, our listeners is dropping by the day.
It's certainly a lot longer than in the UK, where sometimes it feels like it's 30 seconds to speak and then about 10 minutes of music.
Okay, I think for the UK, maybe, but for us, you know why it's so much? Because our station is supposed to be is a talk station. You understand? where we are supposed to talk. For instance, like the BBC, like the CNN, where it's like a talk station. But by having a talk station have music as much as you have talk, it's a big deal for us here.
How familiar are you with radio in the UK?
Not too familiar. Sometimes I listen online. You know how it is with, the internet in this part of the world. We're so struggling trying to be like you guys. But then we're still working on it. It's a gradual process. I listen to, I think I do more of Instagram, followership, so a lot of times, when you go on Instagram, you see some radio stations or you see some honor personalities, honor talent like Keith or God. His name is Leonard on Instagram. So I think I follow him, see some things he does. And, a couple of other people say, for instance, Beat FM UK, because they have Beat FM Lagos here. So, sometimes I try to, follow up.
Yeah, well, the internet has certainly opened up the world, hasn't it? It's a very, I mean, do you use Instagram yourself? As in, do you post photos and things?
Of course, I do.
In terms of other stations in Nigeria, is there anyone else that you listen to?
Yes, of course. I listen to a host of radio stations in Nigeria. You have got to listen to your competitors if you want to stay in the business. So I listen to Cool FM, I listen to Beat FM, I listen to Sound City Radio, which is our sister station. They also own my station. So, of course, I listen to Sound City Radio.
You've hit on an interesting thing, and I know that our UK listeners will be really interested to hear about this. But do you know how many stations the station that you're on actually owns?
We own 12 stations, including TV and radio.
Well, that's quite a number, but we've got quite a few companies in the UK that own rather large amounts, getting into the hundreds in some cases. So in geographical size, I would imagine that that's quite similar. For yourself, when did you start doing radio yourself?
I started doing radio in 2011 when I gained admission to the university. I've always wanted to do radio actually before I got admission, but then I wasn't given the course that would enable me sort of, start radio. But then my school had a radio station and I had to, volunteer, start off in 2011 and up until now I'm still doing radio.
Is the breakfast show or the morning show there quite as prestigious as it is over here?
Yes, of course. It's big here. It's big. The breakfast show is, or, the morning show is like the flagship show of the radio station. So everybody every day wants to listen to what is happening, what is not happening, what's on the news, what's not on the news. So in the morning we have a very, very high listenership on radio. Yeah. Because, in their cars, buses, in tricycles, you have people listening to the radio. In workplaces, you have people tuned to the radio because they want to know what's up for the day. We see radio as very important because it's like the most popular means of communication and, widespread because radio, it's possible you could have a device, a very small device, move around with you, unlike television that a lot of times you have to be, seated somewhere to be able to watch TV or probably online and data is not luxury here yet. You understand? So a lot of times people tune into the radio on their phones. They have radios on their phones. They have, portable devices they could use to listen to radio. So radio is like the popular means of people getting first-hand information here in Nigeria.
Yeah. So in terms of music policy, what kind of music are you guys playing in between all the chat stuff?
Afropop. We do more of Afropop for my station. We do more of Afro music. So we do more of Afro music here. Something that has, the African vibe. We need to do a lot of it here in my station. And for my sister station too, we do, a whole lot of UK songs. We do songs generally. So people are where, not just Nigerian artists. We also know about foreign artists too, a whole lot of them.
I'm finding this really interesting because I know, as you can tell, I know virtually nothing about radio in your part of the world. So I've got so many questions. I don't know what to ask. It's kind of amazing. How does the studio situation work? Do you have a producer or other people with you, or is it all you?
Okay, I think we're trying to run a system where we don't have too many people in the studio, and we're also trying to work a system where, one person knows how to do literally everything because the advent of the internet, you should learn a lot of things on the go. So as an on-air talent, as a presenter here, you know a bit about production. You know a whole lot about editing. You could edit calls because our calls are recorded. A lot of things here, we do more of recordings because we want quality. You understand? Our calls are recorded. Our interviews, a lot of them are recorded. So we cut and base and then we edit. So as an on-air talent on the spot, we know all of these things. So we don't have like a producer somewhere, that's seated and telling you, okay, you are having this guest on your show next, or you are doing this next. You literally have to do everything yourself on the show. So we are working on that because we just want one person to be able to multitask. That's the word here, multitasking. So I think our producer, I do literally a lot of things on radio anyway. So even script writing too. So
you must have to make so many decisions per 4-hour show.
Yes, of course, you have to definitely. A lot of times, there's this band, when you're taking calls, when you are taking comments on social media, a lot of things on the spot, you have to edit on the spot, they call back, there are a lot of decisions you make on the spot, and that's why we want people who can think on the spot. So when you're applying for the job, that's literally one quality they look out for, how you handle situations on the spot, and a lot of times it has to be like the best decision at that moment for the progress of your show.
Is radio in that country regulated? Is there like a body that is kind of monitoring what you're doing?
Of course, we have the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, NBC. They monitor everything that goes on your shift. But then as on a talent, we don't get to read news, we don't get to hype, and a few other things we don't get to do as a presenter on radio. We have someone, an independent person who does all of those things. So in as much as you're in charge of your show, there are certain things your voice should not hear. So we have the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, NBC, control and filter some of these things. In case anyone is caught, you are made to face NBC. Be fine, or as the case may be.
I'll bring things to an end here. But if people wanted to find out more about your show, or perhaps listen in if they're able to, where would they need to go to do that?
Our website, correct.fm, or better so you can follow me up on social media. On Twitter is at Nekky, Nekky, and the number 3 is just beside it. And on Instagram, official Nekky.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Jimmy, for having me.
And thank you to the listeners of the Watching the Wireless podcast. If you want to get in contact with me, please tweet me at Jamie Dyer 89 on Twitter. Thank you.